Next, we are going to work on the sidewalks for your piece. The first thing we need to do is the corner of the sidewalk has to be in line with the corner of your building. So that needs to be straight down. What we want to do is line your ruler up with the top or bottom of your paper. You need to make sure that the bottom of your ruler is lined up to the bottom so that you know it is absolutely straight up and down and that you have that line there that we drew very first. I'm going to give myself a point, just a little dot, so that I know how wide my sidewalk is going to be at the corner there. And I need to match up my right vanishing point to that little dot and my left vanishing point to that little dot. And you can draw this line fairly dark because we're not going to need to erase any of it. You just want to be careful that it's lined up properly. And to the left vanishing point. Make sure that you are giving yourself enough room for the sidewalk, that it's not too skinny or too big. Okay, so just a little bit down there. We also need a vertical line coming down here so that we get the height of our curb. So I'm going to line up the bottom of my ruler to the bottom of my page. Make sure it's lined up to the line that we drew for the corner of the building. And I'm just going to give a little bit of a line down. That even, might be a bit tall, but that's fine. Same thing here. I'm going to line the bottom of this line to the right vanishing point, draw all the way across, and to the left vanishing point and draw all the way across. And again, I can draw this nice and dark. Okay, now I need to get the sidewalk that's across the street. So I have to decide how wide my street is going to be. And again, you want to give yourself kind of enough room. If you put your street too skinny, you're going to have like a weird, super thick sidewalk on this side. And if you put it too wide, you're not going to have your corners showing. So I'm going to line up with the left vanishing point for my left side, and this is going to go across here. So if you want, you don't have to draw the line all the way. You can just erase the extra later. So I'm just going to draw it a little bit light because I know that I'm going to end up erasing some of this later. Okay, so now that I have how wide my road is going to be, this sidewalk actually has to end a little bit sooner, and we need to see how tall the curb is over here. So now we're actually going to be using the opposite vanishing point, and I need to line up the right vanishing point, this top line that I drew for the height of the curb there, and I'm going to draw that all the way across, and then I'm going to pivot down to the bottom there, make sure that's lined up, and draw all the way across there. Okay, so this is actually angled incorrectly now. We need a vertical line here, just like we had a vertical line at this one. So I'm going to make sure that my ruler is lined up to the top of the page, and I need the top corner of this sidewalk to be where I'm lined up. Line up to the top corner there. And this line I am only going to be drawing between this point and where that sidewalk ends at the bottom there. So now I have this kind of weird triangle thing that I'm going to go ahead and erase. And there is a sidewalk for the other side of the street. We're going to end up doing the same thing on the other side in just a second, but we'll go ahead and put the lines on the street on this side. To do the lines across the top and make sure that they are in line with each other, we're going to draw on both sides of the street at the same time, but we actually are using the opposite vanishing point. So we're gonna line up our left vanishing point. I'll start at the bottom corner here. So we're lining up this very first bottom line that we did. And I want to draw just across the top of the sidewalk, closest to the buildings, and then across on the opposite side. As I'm working then, I want to keep on my right vanishing point, and I'm just going to pivot up until I decide how wide I want the second sidewalk piece to be. Draw across the side close to the buildings and also the side across the street. I'm going to, again, keep it on that right vanishing point. I'm just pivoting it up. Okay, so this side is what moves, not over here. So I pivot it up a little bit. As you go back into the distance, you're gonna pivot up a little bit less and a little bit less because you have your diminishing perspective, and these squares are going to look smaller and smaller as you go into the background. And you just wanna keep pivoting up until you hit that horizon line and it's completely vanished away. Okay, and that's, yeah, that'll be my last one. Okay, so that's the left side of our street. For the right side, again, we want to decide how wide our street is going to be. I'm not concerned if they're even on both sides. That's totally fine if they're not. We just want to make sure we're using the correct vanishing point and that everything is in perspective. So I went ahead and to my right vanishing point, I drew that line there. I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite. We need to know where the end of the sidewalk is over here. So I'm going to line up these two lines that I drew earlier for the top and bottom of my curb. Make sure that it's lined up to that line, which is lined up to my left vanishing point. I'm going to draw all the way across, pivot down, make sure that I'm lined up to that left vanishing point. There we go. And again, I have that weird angle there. We want this to be flat, like on this side. So this point right here at the top, I'm going to line up my ruler flat to the bottom of the paper, and I'm just going to draw between these two and erase the extra part. Okay, I probably want to go ahead and darken this line as well. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up to my vanishing point again. And now that I know where that corner is, darken that up. Looks like I was a bit off the first time. That's fine, just clean that up. Okay, so to do the lines on the top of the sidewalk on this right side, we're using the opposite vanishing point again, to the left. So I'm going to line up to my left vanishing point, to the corner of that building. I'm gonna draw across just the top of the sidewalk. And again, I went over a little bit, totally fine, just clean that up. Okay, so now that I've got that one, I'm gonna line back up to my right vanishing point, and I'm just gonna pivot up as I go. So I still need to make sure that I'm touching that right vanishing point. So I'm not sliding my ruler upwards, I'm pivoting. And I draw across the top of both sides. I am not concerned with, are these squares even on both sides? I'm not concerned, do you have the same number of sidewalk squares? I just want everything to be in the correct perspective. And this is gonna be my last go. Boop, boop. And there I have my sidewalk. And it just vanishes into the distance. Next, if you want, you can put the lanes on your streets. So you need those dashed lines down the center and a crosswalk. I'm gonna go ahead and show you doing those dashed lines first. I'm gonna show you on the right-hand side. So what I wanna do is, I like to give myself, again, just that little visual of where I'm headed. So this is approximately halfway. I'm not measuring, I'm just kind of eyeballing it. And what I can do is line up to these lines here, which are lined up to my left vanishing point. So I have that dot there, and I'm just gonna give myself a really skinny line. And that's gonna be the width of those street lines. I'm going to line up, because we're going along the road, my right vanishing point to both ends of that little line there. And I want to do this part very lightly because some of it is going to get erased again. Very lightly. Okay, so now I have one long stripe down the whole street. What I need to do now is get how wide each of those dashes are, and that I'm going to use with the opposite vanishing point again. So to my left vanishing point, and I'm going to pivot on here. So I need to decide first how long my stripe is going to be, and my dash. I'm going to go ahead and make it about that long. I want to pivot up. I need to give a little bit of space in between each of these dashes, because otherwise it's just going to be a solid line again. And again, I am not looking for these to be any specific length, any specific spacing. I just want them to be correct in perspective. So I keep reassessing and making sure that I'm lined up with that vanishing point when I pivot, because sometimes the other part of the ruler can move. So that's definitely good to double check each and every time, because once it gets off, it starts looking really wonky. And I'm just going to keep doing this all the way back. Once I'm done putting in all these marks, and eventually they'll just kind of turn into a straight line just because it's so far back, then I can go in and erase the extra parts. So it pretty much is vanishing at that point. So I've got this extra right here, and I'm going to erase that so that there's space in between each of those dashes. And we're good to go. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do a crosswalk on the other side. If you're wanting to do this on both sides, you would just reverse it. So you go down the road and get the straight line, and then you use the opposite vanishing point to get the dashes. But I'm going to show you if I wanted a crosswalk between these two. The first thing I need is to have the front of the crosswalk and the back of the crosswalk. And I'm going to do this very lightly because I am going to be erasing part of it. And that generally is going to, stop at the bottom of your sidewalk there. So we want it right at the bottom. And I'm going to go, if I had a line down here, it would start right about there. So I'm going to go to that line because it's starting at the street level, not at the sidewalk level. So there is the zone of where my crosswalk is going to be, and now I just need those thick lines so that it'll have how wide it's going to be. One thing, again, that I like to do is just kind of eyeball it and give myself an idea of where I'm going to want those lines first, so that I don't have to worry about it if I can't see through my ruler. So I'm going to line up each of these marks with my left vanishing point and draw down there. And after that, all I would do is just erase the space in between each of those lines. Again, I am checking for, am I lined up to my vanishing point every single time? And I would go in and erase in between. That's it. I would do that last one as well and erase too.